The strange part is, I didn't say yes that night. I also didn't say no, and somehow that changed everything. They said it would be simple. Just show up, observe, trust. No one warned me how quickly watching turns into feeling, or how dangerous it becomes when you realize someone else has been watching you the whole time. My name is Elena. I believed control was safety, a perfect home, a polished marriage to Victor, a man who decided everything, where we lived, who I was, without ever raising his voice. It was comfort, the relief of not having to choose. But comfort dulls you. It wears you down until you forget the shape of your own edges. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't alive. This isn't a fantasy or a confession. It's about that moment where control shifts so subtly. You don't realize you've crossed the line until you're already on the other side. Stay with me. It all began with a dinner. Victor poured wine, his gaze lingering thoughtfully on me. I need you to help me with something, he said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. A gathering, old connections. They need a certain presence. He looked at me then, really looked at me and added, "You'll be incredible." That word, incredible, it followed me around for days. It was a word I hadn't felt in years. For the gathering, I chose a dress that felt honest, not appropriate. A deep emerald green that clung just so. In the mirror, I saw something new flicker in my own eyes, awareness. The building felt like it existed outside of time, all dark wood and hushed tones. I arrived alone, just as Victor instructed. Inside, there were 5 men. Their attention wasn't casual. It was intentional, deliberate. I was the final piece in their design, and the room settled into place around me. One of them smiled, a slow, knowing curve of his lips. Another just watched, his stillness more potent than any words. A third spoke my name like he'd practiced it, letting it hang in the air between us. By all accounts, I should have been uncomfortable, a lamb among wolves. Instead, for the first time in forever, I felt seen. Truly seen, their words were measured, careful. Every pause was meaningful, a space filled with unspoken questions. The tension did all the work. I felt my breath change, grow shallow, and a forbidden part of me liked it. The air was thick with potential. It was a game, and I was just beginning to understand the rules. Then I took a mental step back, suddenly aware of everything I was risking, my marriage, my carefully constructed life. That's when I saw him, Victor. He was observing from the shadows of a nearby archway. There was no shock on his face, no anger, just a quiet, unnerving certainty. "You were remarkable," he said when I finally reached him, his voice low. His hand on my back felt different, charged. "This was never about them," he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. In the car on the way home, the silence was a living thing. Finally, I broke it. "Why?" I asked, staring out at the blurred city lights. He kept his eyes on the road. "Because I've always known," he said simply. "You were waiting for permission, not from them, from yourself." Back at home, the house felt different, charged with the night's energy. It seemed to be watching me. "You don't have to say anything tonight," Victor said, his voice gentle as he loosened his tie. "Not unless you want to." I walked into our bedroom and stood before the mirror. The woman staring back was no longer a reflection of a life lived for someone else. She was finally, terrifyingly awake. I turned to face him. "You planned it," I said, the words hanging between us. "I anticipated it," he corrected softly. "You watched, yes, and you didn't stop it, no." A long silence stretched out, filled with everything we weren't saying. "Because you didn't want me to." The truth pressed in, close and undeniable. I hadn't asked for rescue. I had stayed. The days that followed were strange. Victor watched me with a quiet curiosity, like a scientist studying a predicted transformation. "You've been quieter," he said one evening as I stared out the window. "I'm thinking," I replied. Dangerous, he said, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. What happens now? I finally asked him, needing to know. He stepped closer, closing the distance between us until I could feel the warmth radiating from him. Now, he said, his voice a low hum, you decide. Was that just a moment, or was it a door? A few nights later, over dinner, he dropped it into the conversation so casually. They asked about you. I kept my expression neutral. Who? The same people. I took a slow sip of my wine. What did you tell them? He leaned forward, meeting my eyes across the table. His gaze was intense, unwavering. That you don't belong to anyone, he said. Not even me. He paused. I believe you've spent years pretending you did. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed it all in my mind, every glance, every word. It wasn't about desire, not in the way most people think. It was about permission, a permission I had been starving for. By morning, I had decided. The second gathering felt different. I walked in on my own again, but this time there was no hesitation in my step. The expectant looks were still there, but they were met with my own calm appraisal. No one rushed me. I felt the shift inside me, the absence of fear, the powerful clarity of choice. Victor stood beside me, not guiding me, not protecting me. He was simply witnessing. What unfolded wasn't about actions. It was about the electricity of glances held for a heartbeat too long. Words chosen with surgical precision, nothing crossed the line. But every single boundary was tested, stretched to its limit. When we left, something irreversible had settled between us. You were different tonight, he said in the car, his voice quiet. So were you, I replied, looking at his profile in the dark. He smiled faintly, a real smile this time. Good. Weeks passed. Our life slowly but surely rearranged itself around this new truth. I spoke more. I chose more. I took up space in a way I never had before. Finally, one evening, I had to ask the question that had been haunting me. Was this always your plan? He turned from the window to look at me, his expression serious. No, he said. But I knew the woman you were becoming would never forgive herself if she didn't find out who she really was. And if I hadn't stepped through that door, then I would have loved you exactly the same, he said, without a moment's hesitation. But I would have known you were still waiting. The view from my window hasn't changed. The trees, the street, the sky are all the same, but I see them differently now. Not everything dangerous is destructive. Not every surrender is a weakness. Sometimes it's the moment you stop pretending you don't want more. So let me ask you this. If you ever offered her something you truly believed she'd never accept, what would you feel if she looked you in the eyes and whispered, yes? Let me know in the comments. If this story touched you, please like and share it. Subscribe and turn on the bell.